Today we will recap an action film called White House Down. Be ready for spoilers ahead. John Cale, a Capitol Police officer, is waiting outside the home of Eli Rafelson, the Speaker of the House, as he is part of his security team. After getting out of the house, he is immediately taken and driven to the White House. There, John meets with Jenna, a Secret Service agent who had organized an interview for him to join the Secret Service. He stops her and asks for another favor. He wanted an extra White House pass for his daughter. His daughter is a politics fanatic and is really fascinated by the White House. John hopes to impress her and rekindle their relationship, which is not good as John is barely present in her life, and after receiving, John goes and picks up his daughter Emily and they make their way to the White House. They are thoroughly checked before being allowed in where the interview is to be held. On the other side of the building, the media is having a field day with the president, President James. This is after he announced that he is going to recall all the American troops from the Middle East, as he had made peace with the local leaders. This news was not received well, especially by the American elites, who had invested heavily in the defense industry, and they did not hesitate to criticize the decision. When John sees the interviewer, he is visibly shocked. It was Carol, a former colleague of his. Although his work experience is very good, John is also described to lack motivation and lack respect to authorities, which made him very unsuitable for the job. John tries to beg for a chance, but it was just not possible. He walks out of the room disappointed, but when his daughter asks if he got the job, he lies in the effort to comfort her. As the two are walking out, Emily begs him to let her join a tour group and explore the White House, and they both join. At the same time, a man dressed as the janitor enters into an empty trailer. He hurriedly pulls down the door and approaches a box placed in the dark. He removes a bomb hidden beneath 2 bottles of bleach. He puts the bomb in his trolley and manages to enter into the White House. He walks slowly down the heavily guarded corridors and finally reaches at the center of the building. He leaves the trolley behind and walks away very quickly. The security in charge of that area tries to stop him, but he just continues walking away. As the unsuspecting security approach the trolley, it explodes. The dome is blown off and the entire house is surrounded by thick black smoke. Panic erupts inside the building as the police try to evacuate the survivors safely. The Secret Service, led by Agent Martin Walker, immediately enters into the Oval Office to provide security to the president. The White House goes on full lockdown and the Secret Service take positions in different areas ready for anything. Unfortunately, the tour group could not be evacuated and are trapped inside. John is very worried as his daughter had just left the group to the washrooms and is not back yet. A group of mercenaries who had disguised themselves as maintenance crew take down one Secret Service agent and take his weapon. They walk down the corridors shooting all the police they found and take their weapons. They shoot their way until they reach the armory. They enter inside where they find better guns and properly arm themselves. As Emily is exiting the toilet, he sees the group shooting their way inside and she quickly hides. She switches off her phone as the mercenaries run past her into an elevator. The elevator opens in the command center and they shoot the men inside. They then proceed to the roof and take out all the snipers positioned on the rooftops. They take the rifles and take out all the police guarding the perimeter fence outside of the White House. John tries to call his daughter Emily, but her phone is out of reach. He panics and confronts one of the agents guarding them, demanding to be let out, but he draws a gun on him. On the other side, as the panicked Emily is trying to go to a safer location, she stumbles across another shooting by the same men who now have better guns, but she successfully hides again. When they confirm that it is all clear, they put on face masks and proceed to walk outside and let in several vans into the compound. Emily, who is witnessing the entire thing, takes out her phone and begins recording them. She records them taking in weapons and reinforcement and even managed to capture the terrorists' faces. Carl Killick kicks the door and shoots the agents guarding the tour group. In the commotion, John sees his chance. He picks a gun from the floor and runs outside as Carl shoots at him. He jumps behind a chair and luckily, he managed to escape unharmed. He runs to the bathroom where he thought Emily would be, but he finds no one. One of the mercenary chasing after him sees his reflection in the toilet mirror and starts to shoot. Immediately he sees him, but John jumps back inside for safety and lies on the floor. As soon as he opens the door, he proceeds to shoot him in the chest, killing him. 3 Marine One helicopters finally arrive to take the president to safety, but before they could land, they start receiving heavy fire from the snipers at the roof and fly away. Very quickly, it becomes very clear that the president will not be able to get out of the White House. He is left with only one option, the bunker. The Secret Service get into formation as they walk down the corridors leading the president to the bunker. They enter into the library where the secret entrance is located. He uses eye identification and opens the entrance and they all walk inside. But as soon as they got inside, Agent Martin double crosses them and shoot everyone, leaving only the president. Coincidentally, John is just outside the library and overhears the commotion from inside. He walks in and proceeds to the bunker's entrance, which is still open for some reason. He overhears President James trying to argue some sense into Agent Martin, but when he sees the president at gunpoint, John opens fire and the president is able to escape. He calls the president towards him while still shooting, suppressing fire to provide cover for him, but as soon as the president make it to John, 3 armed mercenaries walk down the stairs and enter into the library. John jumps from behind the corner and attack. He knocks 2 to the ground and shoot one of them, giving them a chance to escape. They run down the hallway while receiving heavy gunfire as they try to get into the elevator. They get in with seconds to spare. The mercenaries run upstairs to try and corner them, but when the elevator doors open, there was nobody inside. The 2 had managed to climb and hide on top of the elevator. On the other side, the vice president makes it inside the Air Force One and it takes off. An emergency response team gathers inside the Pentagon crisis room, consisting of the highest-ranked personnel in the American government. The USA military also arrives outside and surrounds the White House. The media also set up camp and start broadcasting every event happening. The head of the mercenaries, Emil Stenz, and Agent Martin enter the elevator and go downstairs while the 2 are still on its roof. There, they meet with Skip Tyler, a computer genius and a master hacker. Skip goes around and sets motion sensor cameras and booby traps in the underground exit area to monitor the areas. He then proceeds to the server room, connects his devices and start to break through the firewalls of the White House security system. The president remembers he has a spare satellite phone in his bedroom upstairs, which they could use to contact someone on the outside. So John starts climbing the walls and the president follows him from behind. Unfortunately, a terrorist enters into the elevator below and it starts going up towards the 2. They carefully time and jump back on top of it, making a small amount of noise and alert the terrorist. The elevator moves up and they are almost crushed in between it and a metal guard on top, but President James quickly puts a shoe in a gear, jamming it, and it stops with only a few meters to spare. Emily is still roaming free, recording everything she can. Unfortunately, as she is recording, her phone rings and Carl hears it. He looks around and sees her head hiding behind a piano. Emily runs and locks herself in a janitor room. She quickly starts uploading the videos she had recorded on her YouTube channel, but Carl is onto her. She tries to keep quiet, but she is already cornered. Carl threatens to shoot the door down if she doesn't come out, but Emily hesitates, trying to buy time for the videos to finish uploading. When they finish, Emily opens the door and surrenders herself to him. She is taken and thrown into the room with other hostages. On the other side, the Pentagon contacts the vice president, who is still inside the Air Force One. He wanted to send the military and take back the White House by force, but deploying troops on American soil is against the Constitution. The Pentagon contacts the White House in order to verify if the president is still alive before they could do anything drastic. The phone is received by Agent Martin. When they hear his voice, no one could believe it. The head of Secret Service and the person responsible for protecting the president is the traitor. He had helped the enemy infiltrate and take down the White House. Agent Martin had several demands. He wanted $400 million left inside a fueled Boeing C-17 ready for him in the runway. He also warns that if he sees any snipers near the White House, he is going to kill 4 hostages, including cabinet members. He gives them 2 hours to complete his demands. The mercenaries finish unloading the air-to-surface missiles from the elevator, and when the elevator starts going down again, the 2 hang to the sides. They kick in a ventilation cover and use it to get back inside. They walk carefully straight into the president's bedroom, where they find the satellite phone. John quickly contacts Jenna, who is inside the Air Force One, and requests to speak with the vice president. She runs straight and hands the phone to him, who in turn contacts the Pentagon. From being denied a job as a Secret Service agent, John is given the sole responsibility of getting the president to safety. They are instructed to get to the basement, where they will find underground tunnels which they can use to escape to the outside. As they are talking, they are heard by mercenaries who are patrolling the area searching for them. Luckily, John sees their reflection and they quickly hide. When they enter into the room, he jumps from his hiding spot, shooting one, and he begins to struggle with the other, but he is easily overpowered and thrown to the ground. He runs and jumps behind the kitchen cabinets for cover as he is being shot at. As the mercenary is reloading, John hits him with a toaster and they begin to fight. He tries his best, but the giant is too big and strong for him. The president picks a gun from the dead mercenary and walks into the room where the 2 are still fighting. He hesitates to shoot as John is in the way, but immediately after John manages to break free, he opens fire, shooting him to death. When John contacts the Pentagon again, they had a surprise for him. They instruct him to open a TV and see for himself. Video footage taken by Emily had been picked up by the media, and stupidly, The media is showing her pictures and is mentioning her name, saying she is still inside. John goes livid and becomes very angry as he knows, thanks to the media, his daughter is now a target for this terrorists. The mercenaries spot their location and quickly converge there. They find their men lying on the ground lifeless, but John and the president are nowhere to be seen. The two are hiding, holding on inside the air vent, making as little noise as possible, trying not to give away their location. Emil stands as very shocked when he checked the TV and sees his face all over. He sees Emily's pictures as she is being given credit for the footage, and he becomes very angry. Angrily, he kicks the door open and storms inside. He walks straight up to Emily and slaps the poor girl across the face. He puts a gun on her head and demands for the phone. Using the footage obtained by Emily, the Pentagon is able to ID all the criminals involved. They are able to get the background information of all of them. They discover most of them are trained military men and others belong to extremist groups. Though not fully, the Pentagon is able to find out the possible reasons for conducting such an attack, that is, except for Agent Martin. As they are climbing down, the president slips and makes some noise, alerting Agent Martin, who was about to leave. He opens the vent and sees them but does not fire as he needed the president alive. They climb down and enter into the kitchen below. They quickly run into the basement where they contact the Pentagon and requests for codes to open the locked gate to the underground tunnels. They walk through the tunnels, and when they reach far enough, John stops and hands the president a pistol. He gives the president the go-ahead, but John refuses to exit. There was no way he could go and leave his daughter behind. Unfortunately, the president triggers the motion detector cameras put there by Skip, and his location is seen. He also finds the exit door wired shut with explosives and calls for John. After John inspects the door, there is no way he could risk touching them, and they had to turn back. As they are trying to find another route, they bump into the mercenaries, who start shooting at them. The terrorists break through the door and begin chasing them from behind, shooting. They come across another door and thankfully they open and escape through it into the garage. President James quickly picks the car keys and they enter inside the beast. They drive off from the garage trying to escape from the terrorists who are firing at them. The mercenaries also get inside two cars and drive after them. Nobody could believe it. The presidential limo is being chased around the White House compound while receiving heavy fire by two vehicles. John wants to ram down the gate, but he is warned as it has reinforced steel and there was no way they could make it. The two cars rain heavy fire on the beast, but luckily, it is bulletproof and no bullet make it inside. They drive through the basketball court where one of the cars get flipped over. The Pentagon contacts the military outside and orders them to put a hole in the fence where the president would use to escape. A tanker rides over a small section of the fence but is immediately blown apart using an RPG. President James jumps to the back seat and finds a missile launcher. He sticks his head through the car window and blow up one of the gates. Carl quickly take Emily and drag her outside. As John is making the final turn and is about to use the blown up gate to escape, he sees his daughter being held by Carl, and in the confusion, the beast is hit by a RPG missile and thrown into the air through some nearby bushes and lands inside a pool. Thankfully, the two are unharmed. As they are about to be captured by the terrorists, John takes the president as a hostage and points a gun to his head. He knew they wanted him alive and uses that to his advantage. John hands a grenade to President James and he throws it towards the terrorists. They all run away and jump for cover, giving the two a chance to escape. One of the mercenaries starts shooting at the house where the two are hiding and hits some flammable tanks, blowing it up. The explosion was so big that everyone is convinced that the president is no more, so the vice president is sworn in as the new president, and given the mandate to take charge of the country at this crucial moment. His fingerprints are scanned and he is handed the nuclear launch codes. In the Pentagon, the Speaker of the House looks beaten and lost. He is ready to comply with the terrorists' demands, so he orders his men to start moving the money to the place told and avoid more destructions. The two are still alive. They had managed to escape to the underground tunnels and narrowly missed getting burnt alive. Unfortunately, President James had gotten a nasty injury on the stomach. John uses a flashlight to light up the injured area and perform a quick first aid to stop the bleeding. The newly sworn president is quick to action. He orders a team of Delta Force to fly low using 3 Black Hawk helicopters and retake the White House. Unfortunately, Skip was prepared for something like this. He had placed sensors on the streets and is quickly notified when the choppers fly close by. He quickly radios and informs Agent Martin, who instructs his men to get to the roof, and as soon as the Blackhawks appear, the terrorists fire missiles at them and bomb one to the ground. A second helicopter is also hit and it spins around as it falls to the ground. But as Emil is aiming at the third and final helicopter, John charges toward him and tackles him to the ground and they start to fight. Unfortunately, as the soldiers are disembarking, the missile is fired and it hits it. It spins around but finally falls to the ground. John and Emil are still fighting on the rooftop. They break through the glass and fall through several floors to the ground. John quickly stands up, jumps through the window and falls to the garden below as Emil fires shots at him. Emil had grown tired and had had enough of John. He sees a piece of paper on the ground and picks it up, and upon a close inspection, he sees something familiar. He sees Emily's name and immediately connects the dots. It is the White House pass that John had used to get into the White House. Emil now knows that the Starbin child was the daughter to the Starbin man. On the other side, Skip finally cracks down the final firewall of the White House software. He immediately accesses the weapon system and fires a missile. The missile goes and hits Air Force One where the newly sworn-in president is. The plane dives and falls from the sky. As per procedure, the Speaker of the House is the next in command. He is immediately put under the protection of the Secret Service, and sworn in as the acting President of the United States of America. His fingerprint is scanned and he is given his new presidential launch codes. Immediately, he orders the general to prepare and execute an airstrike on the White House. The no-nonsense man is not ready to negotiate with terrorists, and is also willing to sacrifice the hostages' lives for the greater good. 3 USA fighter jets are ordered to fly and blow the White House to pieces, not minding anybody inside. Emil walks into the now destroyed hostage room where he finds Emily. He takes Emily by the arm and drag her out and take her to Agent Martin and tell him what he had found out. Martin uses the loudspeaker to speak to John. He promised John he would kill the little girl if he does not surrender himself. John is left without a choice. He starts walking ready to surrender himself, but before he reaches, the president appears and offers himself to the terrorists and give John a chance to come up with a new plan. He is taken in front of Agent Martin, who pulls out a bag and opens it. It is the presidential nuclear launch briefcase that the president can use to launch missiles to any target. He wants President James to open it using fingerprints, but he refuses. Martin points a gun towards Emily and threatens to blow off her head if he continues refusing to open the briefcase, and after thinking, there was no way he would allow to put millions of lives at risk to save one person, so he refuses. Suddenly, the alarm starts going off. It was John. He is setting the entire house on fire, making the sprinkler to start pouring water on everything. The screen that Skip is using freezes and stops working. As John is running downstairs, Carl appears. He throws a grenade towards him, but this madman kicks it back and it blows up. Carl walks up to John, who is helplessly lying on the ground, but before he could do anything, one of the hostages jumps from behind and hit him with a blunt object on the head, killing him. At this point, the remaining terrorists start turning on each other. Emil and his crew are tired of dilly-darling and sparing the president's life, while Agent Martin feels agitated as all his plans are crumbling. Skip, the computer genius, decides to abandon the plan and escape alone. He walks down to the underground tunnels which he had booby-trapped earlier, trying to escape. Unfortunately, he triggers a bomb he set and he is blown to pieces. Emil leaves to look for John, leaving President James alone with Agent Martin. As Martin is looking the other way, the president sees his chance. He takes a pen and stabs him in the back, but he is punched and he falls to the ground. Agent Martin forcefully puts the president's hand on the scanner and opens the launch pad. He puts in the pin he had been sent earlier and the nuclear weapons go live. He starts to target different cities in the Middle East. When President James sees this, he attacks him, trying to stop him, but the more combat experienced Martin easily overwhelms him, and points a pistol at the president and shoots him. As John is walking down a corridor, Emil attacks him. The two begin to fight. Emil takes out his knife, but when he tries to stab John, he overturns the move and stabs his leg instead. He takes a belt full of grenades and ties them around Emil's neck and remove all the pins. He runs to safety and Emil is blown to pieces. After shooting the president, Agent Martin goes back to the launch pad and starts targeting even more cities in the Middle East, but before he could press the missile launch button, a car crushes through the wall and hit him. It was John. He quickly climbs through the sunroof and aims the automatic gun towards Agent Martin. He opens fire and shoots, preventing him from launching the weapons. John hugs his daughter before instructing her to quickly run outside before the airstrike happens, but for him, he goes even deeper in the house to try and save the president. The 3 jet fighters are very close and ready to fire. As soon as they reach, Emily runs to the open compound, but instead of going to safety, the brave girl starts waving a flag. When the jet fighters sees her, they quickly abort the mission and flies past without bombing the place. Everyone celebrates Emily as she had saved the day, but the Speaker of the House remains still and does not seem happy. President James had also survived. The bullet had hit his pocket watch and saved his life. He is very grateful to John for all that he did for him. But one question remains unanswered: how exactly did Agent Martin Walker get the nuclear codes, as only one person had active nuclear codes, the Speaker of the House and the acting President Eli Rafelson. John walks outside and he meets with the group from Pentagon. He does not hesitate to accuse Eli of being behind the entire thing. He holds up a pager which he got from Agent Martin's body, and when they call the return number, sure enough it rings on him. He had planned the whole thing, including blowing up Air Force One in order for him to be sworn in as the president. Him and his friends had invested heavily in the defense industry, and withdrawal of troops from the Middle East was going to hurt their pockets. President James emerges from the back and orders the soldiers to arrest the traitor. John and his daughter Emily had saved the day in the country. Please like and subscribe for more.